Geographers, hello. First lesson in globalisation. What are we going to do today? Well, we're going to learn what globalisation is, different characteristics, features of it, and what's actually sped it up and accelerated it in recent times. Alright, so in the spec, it's key idea 3.1, and we're going to get through A, B, and C. Several key terms that I'm going to kind of define because these are key to actually understanding what's happening in this bit of spec. So you might want to spend a minute giving it a title, nice shiny new page, give it a title, jot these key terms down the left hand side or in your margin, and then define the meanings as we go. Alright, so what is globalization? There's a few different definitions. The IMF define it, most of your IGOs define it. What is it? The processes by which people, cultures, money, goods and information can be transferred between countries with few or no barriers. Alright, so if we think of the planet, we can much more easily send capital, money across the world. We've got electronic banking systems today that we didn't have maybe 30, 40 years ago. We've got stock markets that facilitate that. Yep, financial sector in global hubs such as London, Tokyo, New York. So capital and money can be transferred much easier. I can go and buy something from another country and I just simply bank transfer or use PayPal to actually send it. Yep. The other way, or the other type of flows, or information. So this digital era, I can send an email in seconds to one person, to companies, or if I've got an emailing list, I can write one email and send it to numerous different people. Yeah, spread and transfer or flows of culture. Introduction of jet aircraft and cruise ships has meant that you can go on holiday, you can go and experience different cultures as a tourist, or migrants that migrate from one location to another can also bring their culture and spread it. Yeah, think different types of exotic foods, for instance, on your high street, Chinese takeaways, Indian takeaways, Bangladeshi takeaways. That's one element of culture as well, and religion. And then another one is commodities or goods. So commodities can take the form of two different types. You can have manufactured and high-tech commodities like an iPhone or any other reputable smartphone manufacturer. A commodity can also be a raw material. Fish, timber, wool, anything really. Yep. So you should be able to define commodities. Okay. I'll run through a few of these as well. Obviously, with all these kind of global flows taking place and all these transfers across the planet and between different countries, that has some impact. So countries or people and groups of people are becoming more interdependent at a global scale, because of all these flows. So what that means is, we'll take one example, for instance. We'll take Russia. Obviously exports a lot of natural resources in the form of gas and energy. So the EU, for instance, relies on Russia for its energy security, and Russia receives capital and money back the other way. If you take China and Western markets, for instance, TNCs that are based in the USA might set up a manufacturing process in China. So China rely on that FDI and that investment, and then companies rely on China actually manufacturing the goods at a lower cost. So there's loads of different ways how different countries and stakeholders such as TNCs, individuals, kind of depend on one another, globally. A commodity, like I say, is just a good, could be a raw material or it could be an iPhone. Global flows I've got the definition on the next slide, so we'll have a look at that. Capital is kind of money that companies or investors can invest. So if a TNC, which is a transnational corporation, if a TNC wants to set up some kind of manufacturing plant in China, then they're going to use capital to do that. Yeah, it's basically a posh term for assets of a company and money. TNCs is a transnational corporation. Just means that it's a company that operates or does business in more than one country or several countries. Many of these companies are obviously global brands. You're going to recognize them. I'll give you a few examples. Disney, Ford, Mitsubishi, Toyota, Amazon, eBay, Nike, across a range of different sectors. Could be retail and fashion, or it could be high-tech products like Apple, for instance. Could be an e-retailer like Amazon. Yeah, so a company that operates in more than one country. FDI stands for Foreign Direct Investment. So if these TNCs invest in another country, then they've invested in a foreign country. It could be a branch plant or like I say, a manufacturing plant or something. It could be a call centre. Then they're actually investing in another country. We call that foreign direct investment. All right, and it's not just kind of richer companies from richer countries investing in your developing world. It works both ways as well. Yeah. Right. I'll do the rest on the next slide. So, global flow, types of flows. Again, key part of this process of globalisation, the movement of money, capital, commodities, iPhones and timber, for instance, as an example, goods and services and information between people and different countries. So I've just put a few examples here. Let's have a look. Yeah, so we get rid of this. What have we got? That's a pretty crap picture. Bad resolution. Yeah, so your global brands are obviously in TNCs. They're key in this. Yeah, commodities move from, for example, Asia and China and India to Western markets. Information moves constantly all over the world, whether it's email or whether it's digital data. Services, again, you've got financial services that tend to operate or be based in the world's financial centres. So Tokyo, London, New York are big ones, yeah, but there's others as well. Right, what we got here? Yeah, information, it can also, as individuals, how does information travel? Well, internet's key and crucial in that, but from news reporting, radio, you can keep in touch with people on Facebook and message each other. What else we got? The movement of culture and your ability to go and kind of experience different cultures through tourism. Tourism's a key part of globalisation as well. And then this one is oh my life, what's gone off here? The global flows of migrants as well. So what this crappy image did show before I double checked it is I compressed it even to reduce the file size. Oh dear, you're going to see a live cock up. So yeah, I'm going to describe what the image did show. Different places, regions and continents of the world in different colours, and then you can see where people are moving from and to. So if you look at this, global flows of migrants, tourists, technologies in increased that over the last, 50, 100 years or so, as well as other factors as well. Right, let's see if this one's crap. Here we go. Yeah, of course it is. Oh, we can actually see what the title is on this one. What this graphic shows is the global flow of data and communication. So you can see the EU, North America and the USA. Every continent has got some level of kind of flow of data and communication. The big ones between North America and the EU and Asia, Australia as well. But the one where there's less kind of global flows is of data and communication is into Africa. That's the one continent that's kind of a bit more switched off. Okay. So just to recap then, what global flows have accelerated in recent years? And they are commodities, whether they're raw materials and manufactured products, people, whether they are migrants, temporary or permanent economic migrants, tourists, temporary obviously, refugees as well that are fleeing war or persecution or environmental disaster, economic migrants, capital and money. This can be on an individual basis where migrants send remittances or money back home to the families when they've been working in a foreign country. That's at an individual level, but also TNCs are crucial in that as well. Yeah, so they might invest in other foreign countries to set up an operation through FDI and also information and kind of that's electronic, yeah, where the internet's crucial as well in all of this. All right, second bit of the spec. So what factors have accelerated this globalisation? I've probably already mentioned a few on my previous slide. It's very difficult to kind of split this up, but it's technology in a nutshell. So technology has improved in terms of transport, where you actually move goods and products and commodities across the planet between countries. Trade, obviously, is part of that. ICT and communication technologies as well. So let's have a look. Here we go. So if I remember doing this at uni, it fried my brain at the time. I thought it was fascinating. Why are my pictures so pants? Here we go. I'm not compressing them, I've learnt my lesson. Right, so there's something called time-space compression. Alright, it sounds like something from Back to the Future or Doctor Who or something like that. You know, we're going to get in a TARDIS and compress space and time. Unfortunately, I've not got the powers of God. So what is it? Well, if we think of the world in, say, we'll go back to the 1500s. If you wanted to get a message to someone that lived 300 miles away, just think, how are you going to do that? It's going to be a messenger that travels by horseback, horse and cart. So just to get a simple letter, you know, from one end of the UK to the other, it's going to take a long time. Distance was a factor, right, in getting messages, goods, products to market, for instance. Yeah. So in the 1500s, we'd rely on horse and cart. All right. Again, another crap compressed picture. If we're thinking in terms of shipping products across the world, we'd do it by sailboat. Think Captain Cook, et al. Again, you want to get a product from Australia to Europe. I've no idea how long it's going to take you by sailboat. It's going to be weeks, if not months. All right. Now, as we moved into the 1850s, we had a few developments in technology that made the time it took to get a message or goods to different places, and in effect, that's like kind of shrunk the distance because it happens a lot quicker. All right. So what technology was crucial in the 1850s? Well, you've got steam trains, much faster than horses. You can put goods on that. Again, we're reducing the time it takes to cover the distance. What else we got? 1950s propeller. Here's a twin prop. You won't catch me on one of them. Twin propeller aircraft, which I think they do about 300 miles an hour. Again, so now we start to like really kind of shrink the time it takes to cover large distances. Then we've got jet aircraft in the 60s. So why is that relevant to you lot? Well, if you want to go to San Antonio Bay or Magaluf or Las Vegas or wherever you go, New York, Maldives, on holiday, it's going to reduce the travelling time massively in it. Yeah, Concorde, I think, got from the UK to New York in like two to 3 hours, when normal jet aircraft, if you jump on a Boeing 767 today, it's going to take you 5 to 6 hours. So with technology, what it does is it shrinks the time it takes to get messages or goods longer distances. And then if we really have an extreme example of that, the growth of internet, satellites, etc., this digital era, you know, I can literally get, if I've got an email list, if I'm a company, and I've got 10,000 people that I've managed to get their email address from somewhere, and I want to advertise my product, I can write one email, hit click to all, and literally that message goes out to the four corners of the planet to 10,000 people in lots of different countries. So the internet and satellites and undersea data cables and things like that have made it super fast to get information across large distances. And I guess you can apply that to kind of e-banking as well. Yeah. So it's this idea that in the 1500s the world seemed a pretty big place. Yeah. And gradually technology sort of metaphorically shrunk it. All right. It's still the same size, folks. Like the Earth's not shrunk, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah. Also on the left hand side, just here, the cost, technology has made it much cheaper as well, and this is a key bit of globalisation, made it much cheaper to communicate and actually get products from one side of the world to the other. Yeah. Yeah, what's this here? This is a timeline, I think it's just, yeah. So, timeline of how technology has kind of shrunk space and time. Gone from ships to canal and stagecoach, steamships and steam trains, telegraph cables laid in the latter part of the 19th century, then radio as well. Radio gets messages and information out quick as well. Yeah, it's all about speed. TV, as in regards to the news and information, again, it's instant. It can get messages and information really quick. And then, you know, mobile phones, PCs, internet really did speed things up. Alright. Right, if we think some specific examples, we'll just take two different kind of stakeholders or different players, because in geography it's never just you want to be specific when you name your stakeholders. So individuals and people like you lot, yeah, what technological developments in transport, trade and IC&T and communication are relevant to you? Well, like we said, jet aircraft, yeah, you can go on holiday, you can travel to different parts of the world, you can travel to New Zealand in I think 20 odd hours, whereas in the olden days in the 1500s it took you months. Alright, what are the benefits of jet aircraft for businesses? Well, they could choose to actually ship the products to the market and the buyers much quicker. Alright, container shipping. Now, containerisation, it's one of your key words. What is it? Well, if you look at this ship, one of the biggest container ship in the world can hold 19,000 containers. Alright, and the reason why it can hold that many containers is because of the process of containerisation. So if I'm wanting to ship products from one country to another, if I'm a TNC, chances are I'm going to use containers. Why are they so beneficial? Why does it make it easy? It's because they're all of a standard dimension. So it doesn't matter what you're shipping, whether it's a Porsche 911 Turbo or a load of plastic rubber ducks that are made in China, whatever, or iPhones, you basically stick them in a container, and then at the port, a crane comes, picks up the containers, and they can stack them like Lego bricks, basically. So you can get a lot more on a ship. Yeah, 19,000 is the biggest ship in the world, and they're getting bigger and bigger constantly. So again, benefits of that to business, they can ship large volume and quantities of their product to anywhere in the world, more or less, and it reduces costs as well. It's far cheaper to stack 19,000 of these on a ship and send them all in one go than it is if they weren't a standardized size. All right. Benefits for people, well, increased competition means prices should be kept lower because of economies of scale. Telecommunications like landline phones and mobile phones, benefits for people, they can stay in touch with family members, they might use it as part of the work or the job, for instance. For companies, again, marketing, drive sales, that sort of thing. Internet and satellites, email, e-commerce, advertising, Nike and a lot of these companies have websites, so they've got a global reach to different people across the planet. If I want to stay in a hotel, I might choose the Marriott, I might choose Ibis, I might choose Premier Inn, whatever, but they will have a website where I can go and book, as a customer. And the same goes for a lot of these different kind of TNCs. So the internet is crucial. All right, what else we got here? Electronic banking for individuals as well. If I buy something, what did I buy? I bought some Nike Air Max USAs from China, limited edition, 1996, from the Atlanta Olympic Games. Yeah, couldn't get them from anywhere in this country. I googled Nike Air Max USA because I had a pair when I was in year 9 and I've always missed them. So I found a company, I think it were in Vietnam or Thailand, that made them. I literally bought them on their website, paid the shipping fees, wired the money, and hey ho, I'm actually wearing them right now. Yeah, awesome. Companies as well. Yeah, the company that I bought the Air Max USAs from, obviously they've received my money, haven't they? So, and they can also send money to different branch plants in different countries. Social media benefits for individuals. You get to stay in touch with relatives, family members, even if they're living in a different country. My friend migrated to Australia 2005. I've never seen him once since that day. I don't think I've even spoken to him on the phone. But I know exactly what he's doing in his life, the fact that he's got 2 kids, and he's married and what have you. So yeah, it's good for staying in touch with relatives and people. Right. What's this? Yeah, these are the top 20 internet leaders. So you can see they're all global brands, most of these. You'll have heard of most of them. Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, Facebook, Netflix, etc. Yep. So the internet and satellites is crucial for information and sales, customer support as well, and after sales. Right, that's a bit of an overview of what globalisation is and what technology and factors have caused it to accelerate. It's all kind of interconnected, a lot of this. Couple of key terms that I still need to define that are crucial. Obviously, we've got TNCs. They actually invest in foreign countries. Economies of scale. When I talked about containerisation and container shipping, if a company can manufacture or make a lot of a product, the costs become cheaper, generally speaking. Therefore, the price to the consumer is more competitive. Yeah. So there's not only Nike making footwear and trainers. You've got Adidas, obviously, Gola, Reebok, whatever. So they're all in competition, and if the prices are too high, they're going to struggle. So yeah, that downward, economies of scale ensure that the price point is competitive. So companies like to manufacture a lot of something and ship it, hence containerisation. Trade barriers. A trade barrier is just something that hinders free movement of products and commodities. So, who would be responsible for putting a trade barrier in place? Normally, it's a country that perceives or sees themselves as, suffering from either normally imports into their country. So, for instance, a recent example, Donald Trump when he got when he got made president in 2016, a lot of people in the US kind of lost their jobs in the steel industry because, and he blamed China for this, and he said Chinese companies were unloading and dumping, another word for selling, lots of cheap steel in the USA. So companies that are making a skyscraper, for instance, weren't buying US-made steel. Weren't buying US-made steel. They were actually paying and buying the imported Chinese steel. So one thing he could do is put a trade barrier in place where he could ban Chinese steel completely, which I don't think he'd do that, because the Chinese then would probably retaliate. Or he could increase the taxes on Chinese steel and make it more expensive for companies to buy it. That would make then people more likely or as likely to buy US made steel. So yeah, that would be an example of a trade barrier. The opposite of that is a free trade area. So for instance, the EU is a free trade area. People, if you look at this definition of globalisation, people, if they're an EU citizen, can live and work in any EU country with minimal kind of hassle. You might have to fill a form in or two, but it's pretty easy. I could go and teach in Italy, Switzerland, Spain, Portugal, Norway, Finland tomorrow if there were a job there and a school wanted to employ me quite easily. However, if I wanted to migrate to somewhere like Australia that's not in the EU, I'd probably have to pay thousands of dollars, get a migration lawyer, and it's more of a hassle. So that's a barrier to migration, really. So the EU companies can move components of goods, then they can assemble them in which country they want. They can take the finished product and actually, sell it in whichever country they choose. So that's a free trade area. What else have we got? Division of labour. In fact, I'll start with capital. I've done that one on capital. Division of labour. Again, this is an important kind of characteristic of globalisation as well. And my old professor at the University of Sheffield, they were called Harvey William Armstrong, and one of the first lectures I ever had, and he was talking about capital always seeks the greatest return. Alright? What he meant by that is if it's cheaper for a company to manufacture a product in a foreign country and there's less risk, then they will do that because they increase profit. Alright, that's their motive ultimately, generally speaking, of a company is to increase their profit margins for shareholders or for the company. One way to do that is to use globalisation and the division of labour. So the division of labour is basically splitting the process of manufacturing a product. So for instance, and it's all to reduce costs and improve efficiency. So take Nike for instance. I'm not picking on Nike or any other footwear manufacturer or fashion as an industry. 20-30 years ago, they would make their jeans, their trainers in China because labour costs were really cheap, and the Chinese kind of welcomed that as well because they wanted the FDI. But recently, actually, China's labour costs have increased a little bit more, so it's fluid. So it's actually now moved to Vietnam, Thailand, and Southeast Asia. So the division of labour and outsourcing, it is fluid. All right, capital always seeks the greatest return wherever that may be, providing the country's stable and there's not too much risk. And I think, folks, that will do. All right, so yeah, make notes, watch it again if you need to. Have any questions ready for me in lesson. All right.